Hello everyone and welcome to the Unit 3 overview video. This week we're talking about civil liberties and civil rights, which I've called Who Watches the Watchmen. And I'm doing this basically as a nod to the fact that governments often try to oppress their people and prevent dissent in a variety of ways. We're going to hit this real quickly and then I'm going to run through my 5-minute freedoms videos. So as we've discussed, the Constitution is not only a political document, but a practical document. And it was designed to correct the problems with the previous form of government under the Articles of Confederation. They believed in natural law, this concept of inalienable rights. And the idea is there are certain rights that are inherent to all of us as human beings, and these rights are essential to a free society. But at the time, very, very few countries honored those rights. And we have a long history prior to the founding of governments, unjustly imprisoning political opponents on phony criminal charges. There's this threat of a tyranny of the majority in any kind of democracy. And so the Constitution was designed to prevent that. And there are a couple solutions here. You could do, first of all, nothing. Because, as I mentioned, our Constitution was set up in a fairly unusual way. It was designed, basically, instead of giving the government full powers and then providing a few limits on those powers, our government was designed to be one that had no power except for those that were expressly given to the government. So, hey, there's no provision in the Constitution that allows you to infringe on these fundamental, inalienable rights that are essential to free society, so we don't have to do anything. Others said, well, no, we want a Bill of Rights that specifically denies the government the power to do the things that we've seen governments do in the past. And ultimately, that latter argument won out, and so we did get, almost immediately, a Bill of Rights adopted by the first Congress. And the Bill of Rights basically solved 2 out of 3 of these problems. You have protections against the violation of these so-called inalienable rights. So your First Amendment, which protects freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, the right to bear arms. You have the Third Amendment with respect to quartering of soldiers, which is not something we hear about much today, but at the time, the British Crown would require the colonists to give shelter and some food and so forth to British troops. The Fifth Amendment prevents the government from going in and seizing somebody's property without at least paying for it. And then finally, you have the Ninth Amendment, which says, listen, just because we listed these other rights in the first 8 amendments doesn't mean it's a complete list. The people have other rights that we might not have listed here expressly, because we can't list everything. The second thing that this Bill of Rights did was to provide a lot of protections against unjust arrest, imprisonment, and other types of government tyranny, where the government basically is sending people into your house to arrest you because you don't agree with them. And so you've got the Fourth Amendment that protects against unreasonable search and seizure. The Fifth Amendment providing certain protections to those accused in criminal trials. The Sixth Amendment saying that those criminal trials, they have to be quick. You can't throw somebody in jail and keep them there for 10 years and eventually get around to trying them later. And then you have the Eighth Amendment, which addresses sentencing issues. Okay, even if somebody's convicted, you can't have excessive bail. You can't have cruel, unusual punishment. So that solved 2/3 of the problems. And then finally, the Civil War amendments address sort of this third issue, which is the tyranny of the majority. So you've got the 14th Amendment, which includes both the due process and equal protection clauses, and we will talk more about these as we move forward with this unit. But this basically extends the protections of the Bill of Rights to actions by the state governments as well. Because at the time of the founding, the federal government, Congress, shall make no law restricting the freedom of speech, for example. But it didn't say anything about state governments. You also have the Equal Protection Clause, which was used to prevent discrimination based on a variety of factors that now have been extended to race, ethnicity, religion, sex, and there might be others. Sexual orientation has come into play, gender issues have come into play recently, issues of discrimination based on whether you're a citizen or not, political affiliation, intelligence. I mean, there are many things that might be protected under the Equal Protection Clause. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that only a minority of Americans are subject to, but that's kind of the idea. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up. And our basic plan of attack is this week, I'm going to go through a series of 5-minute freedom videos. I apologize that the videos are a little late this week, but again, I'm sorry, allergy issues have just robbed me of my voice day after day. Next week, we'll get into defendants' rights. And on that, I'm not going to walk through things in as great a detail. Instead, I'm going to talk about Jay-Z's 99 Problems song, because it's a great way to sort of walk through what is it that the Constitution says about those who are accused of a crime and ultimately potentially charged with a crime. And then finally in week 8, we're going to get into civil rights and equal protection. And with that, I will let you go from the unit overview and we'll move into our 5-minute freedoms video. Thank you.